Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. They say real love doesn't just happen. It builds over time through laughter, patience, and standing by each other no matter what. And if there's one Hollywood couple that proves that, it's Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. It was 1981, and Tom Hanks was still carving out his place in Hollywood. He'd landed a role on a quirky sitcom called Bosom Buddies, playing a young man who dresses as a woman to live in an affordable, all-female apartment building. Audiences loved its offbeat premise, and Tom's charm was undeniable, but he was far from the supernova he'd become. That same season, Rita Wilson showed up as a guest star in a single episode. She played Sky Doll, a brief love interest for Tom's character. On camera, they had the easy, natural chemistry that producers dream of. Laughs, banter, a flirtatious spark. Off camera, Tom and Rita exchanged polite smiles and pleasantries, nothing more. He was married at the time, and she was focused on her own rising acting career, appearing in TV shows and a handful of films. But even then, there was something soft and real in the way they looked at each other, a warmth that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. It wasn't a dramatic love at first sight, more like the gleam of recognition in two people who sensed there was something to explore later. Tom Hanks, in fact, would later admit to friends that he remembered Rita in a way he didn't remember most of his co-stars. "It was like she stuck in my head," he'd say years later. "I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd met someone special." Fast forward to 1985. Tom Hanks had just finished A League of Their Own, but he wasn't quite yet the megastar he'd soon become. Meanwhile, Rita continued to build her resume. Bit parts in Jaws 3D, recurring roles on TV shows, and small indie films. Their paths crossed again when Volunteers, a comedy film about Peace Corps volunteers in Thailand, needed a supporting actress. Rita auditioned, got the part, and stepped onto set beside Tom. This time, there was no hiding it. On that hot, humid Thai backlot, actually filmed in Hawaii, their on-screen scenes frequently spilled into long, unscripted conversations, laughing between takes, sharing meals, exchanging stories about childhood, ambitions, and families. Friends later said the crew often had to remind them, jokingly, to action instead of just talk for a while. Tom told interviewers that, in that moment, he felt something he'd never felt before, a deep, grounding connection, not a whirlwind infatuation, more like an anchor, something that whispered, "This is real." Some say Rita had the same reaction. She noticed how Tom treated the crew with kindness, how he listened when she spoke, how he made her feel seen in a way no one else had. Yet, nothing official happened then. Tom was still legally married to his first wife, Samantha Lewis. They'd separated in 1987, though they wouldn't finalize the divorce until that same year. And Tom was navigating the complexities of new fame and a shifting personal life. But when Rita returned to Los Angeles, she and Tom continued to exchange phone calls, late-night conversations that sometimes stretched until dawn. They talked about everything: favorite authors, dream roles, the fear of losing themselves in Hollywood's whirlwind. By late 1987, Tom and Samantha's marriage was over. Tom was going through the painful public end of that relationship, but Rita quietly provided a listening ear. They didn't announce anything. They simply spent more time together. Lunches turned into dinners, dinners turned into weekends away from the city, and soon friends noticed they were almost inseparable. Tom once said that proposing to Rita felt like a no-brainer, but he still wanted it to be meaningful. In early 1988, on a road trip up the California coast, he pulled the car over at sunset near Big Sur. The Pacific Ocean roared beneath them. The sky was painted pink and gold. Tom got down on one knee and asked Rita to marry him. No flash, no paparazzi, just two people who knew they had something precious. When they married on April 2nd, 1988, at a small ceremony in Santa Barbara, it was exactly as they wanted: quiet, heartfelt, and private. Their family and a handful of close friends gathered beneath oak trees, dappled by afternoon sunlight. Rita wore a simple white dress. Tom wore a dark suit. There were no extravagant fireworks, just vows, a few tears, and laughter so genuine that even strangers in the park turned to watch. They kissed, the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and the real adventure began. Even under quarantine, they refused to be apart, proving that when you've weathered years together, a virus suddenly feels less daunting. 8. A love that deepens with time. 2000s. Now more than 35 years after that first aired Bosom Buddies episode, Tom and Rita still move through Hollywood hand in hand. They support each other's creative endeavors, Rita's music career, her 2022 album drew praise, and Tom was right there dancing in the audience. And Tom's latest acting roles. He found every excuse to bring Rita to film festivals. On red carpets, the way they look at one another still feels fresh. Eyes bright, smiles unguarded, as if they're rediscovering each other every single day. They've built a home in Pacific Palisades where laughter echoes through the halls, family dinners are loud and chaotic, and everyone, kids, grandkids, friends, feels welcome. When asked what the secret is, Tom always says the same thing. We never stop talking. We listen, we share. Rita adds, it's not magic, it's choosing him, choosing us, every day. Even now, they keep that 3-week rule. Tom still reshuffles movie schedules if it means he can be with Rita. Rita still surprises Tom with coffee on set or an overnight drive to wherever he's filming. They read scripts to each other, laugh late into the night, and remind one another of where they started. An unremarkable sitcom set, 2 young actors sharing a scene, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Epilogue. The power of choosing each other. In a town filled with romances that burn bright and fizzle fast, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson's story feels like something out of a classic love novel, one that keeps going long after the pages should have ended. They've known each other through first marriages, career highs and lows, intense media scrutiny, serious illness, and a global pandemic. And yet, here they are, still laughing, still holding hands, still looking at each other like tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but together it just might be perfect. They once said, "You know what the best part of love is? It isn't finding someone perfect, it's finding someone imperfect who makes you feel perfectly understood." Tom and Rita found that in each other, and through the years, through checkered sitcom beginnings, Hollywood's glaring spotlight, and life's darkest storms, they proved that real love doesn't just happen. It's built day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment, and as long as they both have breath, Tom and Rita will keep choosing one another, over and over again, just like they always have. Emily Blunt and John Krasinski. They say timing is everything, and for Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, it was nothing short of fate. In 2008, Emily had just come out of a difficult breakup. Her rising fame from The Devil Wears Prada had placed her squarely in Hollywood's spotlight, but emotionally, she was nursing wounds and focusing on herself. Across town, John Krasinski was becoming a household name thanks to his role as Jim Halpert on The Office, a character known for his awkward charm, slow-burn romance, and heart-melting looks at the camera. Off-screen, John was still figuring things out. Love wasn't exactly in the cards. Or so he thought. Neither of them was actively looking for a relationship. That's when life threw in a plot twist worthy of a movie script. The two met by chance at a restaurant in Los Angeles. Emily was out with a mutual friend, actor Justin Theroux, enjoying a casual night. John happened to walk in and spot her across the room. Something shifted in him. He later confessed in interviews that he knew he was going to marry her from the moment he saw her. But in that split second, he wasn't suave or rehearsed. He was just a guy who had the guts to walk over and say hello. "I wasn't really looking for a relationship," Emily would say later, "but I met John and it just kind of happened." John, being John, broke the ice with humor. Not the slick, scripted kind, but the sweet, slightly panicked, "Oh my God, I'm talking to Emily Blunt" kind. His awkward honesty worked. Emily smiled, relaxed, and something clicked. It wasn't flashy or overly flirtatious. It was warm, natural, human. That connection led to a first date that, by Hollywood standards, was incredibly humble. John invited her over to his apartment where they ordered food and watched Jaws. Yes, the shark movie. He jokes that it was a risky move, but for them, it was perfect. "We just had this ease with each other," Emily recalled. "It felt like I'd known him forever." They began quietly dating, shielding their growing bond from paparazzi and public scrutiny. It wasn't about red carpets or headlines. It was about long conversations, laughter, and a sense of safety that's rare in the chaos of celebrity life. Emily later said John made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. He, in turn, called her the kindest, most grounded person he'd ever met. By August 2009, a little over a year after that first Jaws-filled night, John proposed. He did it in Los Angeles during a simple private moment. No fanfare, just love. She cried, he later said, and I cried, and then everyone around us was crying. Emily said yes without hesitation. She later called it one of the easiest decisions she ever made. Their wedding in July 2010 was held at George Clooney's stunning estate in Lake Como, Italy, a location as dreamy as the romance itself. Guests included A-list friends, but the ceremony itself was intimate and heartfelt. No over-the-top spectacle, just two people promising to walk through life side by side. Since then, their love has only deepened. In public, they're playful, affectionate, and supportive. But it's behind the scenes that their bond truly shines. Over the years, they've welcomed 2 daughters and built a life rooted in family, laughter, and mutual admiration. Despite their fame, they've remained fiercely private, rarely sharing details about their children and choosing to keep most of their love story away from the spotlight. But when they do talk about each other, it's magic. "She's my hero," John once said in an interview. "She makes everything better. My work, my life, everything." One of the most iconic chapters in their relationship unfolded in 2018 with A Quiet Place. Written and directed by John, the film cast Emily as the fierce, resilient mother at the center of a post-apocalyptic thriller. John originally hadn't planned to cast his wife, wanting to avoid mixing business with personal life. But after reading the script, Emily asked if she could play the role. John was stunned, then elated. The process was emotional for both of them. They collaborated as professionals, but the subtext was deeply personal. Watching Emily bring the character to life, especially in the birth scene, which involved both physical and emotional intensity, left John speechless. "It was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen," he said. The film went on to become a global success, earning critical acclaim and box office records. But more importantly, it became a love letter to their partnership, proof that when they come together, beautiful things happen. Emily echoed those sentiments. "Working with John was creatively fulfilling in a way I never expected. I fell in love with him all over again." Still, their relationship hasn't been without challenges. Juggling demanding careers, raising 2 children, and living life under a microscope can wear on even the strongest of couples. There have been long stretches apart due to filming schedules, moments of exhaustion, and the constant pressure of being a public couple in a very private world. But through it all, they've held on to the simple things, the glue that binds any lasting relationship. Handwritten notes, texts that say, "I miss you," cooking dinner together, making each other laugh on hard days, supporting each other through career highs and heartbreaks. John once said, "I wake up every morning and just feel lucky to be next to her." And Emily, with a glow in her eyes, has called him her anchor and her North Star. It's not about fairy tale perfection. It's about consistency, kindness, choosing each other over and over when life gets chaotic. In a world obsessed with grand gestures, they've taught us that real love lives in the quiet moments, in shared jokes, late-night movies, whispered encouragements, and unshakable respect. Over 15 years after that first hello in a Los Angeles restaurant, Emily Blunt and John Krasinski are still writing their love story, one beautiful, humble, deeply human chapter at a time. And the world, we're just lucky we get to watch. Denzel and Pauletta Washington, they say true love waits. But for Denzel and Pauletta Washington, true love did more than that. It waited, fought, forgave, and most importantly, chose. Again and again. Over 4 decades, through fame, challenges, and the ever-flashing lights of Hollywood, their bond stood firm. Before the red carpets, the Oscars, or the international fame, there was just a man and a woman crossing paths in a moment that seemed ordinary. Yet destiny had other plans. It was 1977 on the set of a modest television film called Wilma, a biopic based on the life of Olympic gold medalist Wilma Rudolph. Pauletta Pearson was a trained and graceful actress, already catching attention with her poise and talent. Denzel Washington was a relatively unknown actor, still studying his craft, chasing opportunities that would one day turn into history-making roles. Their first meeting was not a cinematic spark of instant attraction. No slow-motion glances, no instant chemistry. In fact, Pauletta has admitted she didn't even really notice him that day. But fate doesn't always work in grand gestures. Sometimes it shows up quietly and then waits. The two would cross paths again, this time in New York City at a mutual friend's party, and again at another event. Eventually, they began talking more. One evening, they found themselves at the same play, sitting only a few seats apart. It was as if the universe kept nudging them together. Eventually, the connection sparked, slow and careful. Pauletta wasn't one to be easily swayed by charm. And Denzel, though funny, charismatic, and ambitious, still had to earn her trust. He wasn't Denzel Washington, the movie star. He was just a young man trying to make it in an unpredictable world. Pauletta saw the potential, but she also saw the struggle. Their early dating years were grounded in friendship, honesty, and a mutual respect for each other's intellect and dreams. There was no rush, no pressure. Just two artists figuring out how they fit into each other's lives. And yet, even then, Denzel knew she was the one. He proposed. She said no, not because she didn't love him, but because Pauletta Pearson understood the weight of commitment. Marriage to her wasn't about a diamond ring or a romantic weekend. It was about weathering storms, raising a family, and standing in the gap when the world got tough. So he asked again, and again. It took 3 proposals before she finally said yes. In 1983, they were married in a modest, deeply personal ceremony. No paparazzi, no Hollywood headlines. Just 2 people choosing each other with no scripts, no rehearsals, just love. Over the decades that followed, the world watched Denzel's star rise. From glory to Malcolm X, from Training Day to Fences, he would become one of the greatest actors of his generation. Respected, awarded, and admired. But behind that greatness was always Pauletta, a woman who held down the home, raised 4 children, and often sacrificed her own flourishing career as an actress and classical pianist to ensure their family remained grounded. She was his quiet strength. In interviews, Denzel has always been quick to give her the credit. "I wouldn't be the man I am without her," he once said. "My wife's a saint." And he meant it. Not as a sweet soundbite, but as a truth etched into his soul. They faced what most couples do: misunderstandings, growing pains, hard conversations, moments of exhaustion. But they faced it together. Tabloids occasionally whispered. Hollywood tried to guess. But the couple always kept the sacred parts of their love private, never letting outsiders define their marriage. In 1995, after more than a decade of marriage, they renewed their vows. Not in Los Angeles or New York, but in South Africa. The officiant, none other than Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The moment was more than ceremonial. It was spiritual, a recommitment rooted in faith, resilience, and grace. Over the years, Pauletta has opened up about the real work behind their long-lasting marriage. "It takes a lot of prayer," she once said. "It takes letting go and forgiveness. It's not just about surviving, it's about choosing each other, even when it's hard." Denzel, for his part, often laughs when asked about the secret to a happy marriage. "Do what you're told," he'll joke. But beneath the humor is a deep respect, a reverence for the woman who has stood beside him through every mountain and valley. Their relationship has never been about showmanship. They aren't the couple you see posting selfies or chasing attention. They walk red carpets together, sure, but you'll often catch them holding hands, whispering jokes, laughing quietly to themselves. Still each other's best friend after all this time. And their children, all 4, John David, Kadia, and twins Malcolm and Olivia, have grown into accomplished adults. Their eldest, John David Washington, has followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a respected actor in his own right. Tenet, Black Klansman, carrying himself with the same grace and humility instilled by both parents. In many ways, Denzel and Pauletta's love story is an antidote to the cynicism we often feel about love, especially in Hollywood, because it wasn't flashy, it was faithful. It wasn't instant, it was earned. It wasn't perfect, but it was persistent. They are the kind of couple who still dances in the kitchen, who still prays together before big moments, who still finds joy in the quiet things. the laughter of their kids, a shared look from across a room, a moment of peace in a chaotic world. Denzel once said, "What keeps a marriage going? A lot of hard work, commitment, and a whole lot of love." And after more than 40 years together, they remain one of the rare love stories that didn't just survive the Hollywood machine, it thrived in spite of it. Because Denzel and Pauletta Washington didn't just fall in love, they chose it, over and over again. Barack and Michelle Obama, a love that changed the world. In a world full of fleeting romances and power couple headlines, some love stories quietly rise above the noise, built not on glitter or spotlight, but on mutual respect, shared purpose, and unwavering partnership. The love story of Barack and Michelle Obama is just that. It is a masterclass in what happens when two driven, grounded souls collide and commit not just to each other, but to a shared vision of life. Their story begins not in Washington, D.C. or on the campaign trail, but in Chicago during the summer of 1989. At the time, Michelle Robinson was a 25-year-old associate at the prestigious law firm Sidley Austin. Smart, elegant, and already making a name for herself, Michelle had carved her path with discipline and drive. She had grown up on the south side of Chicago in a working-class family that instilled in her the value of hard work, education, and self-respect. At Harvard Law School, she had excelled, one of the very few black women in a field still dominated by white men. By the time she landed at Sidley, she was focused, serious, and not remotely interested in workplace romance. Enter Barack Obama. He was a 27-year-old summer associate, charming, thoughtful, and unpolished in the most sincere way. Unlike most law students, Barack wasn't chasing a six-figure paycheck. He was more interested in community organizing than corporate ladders, more passionate about justice than billable hours. Michelle was assigned to mentor him that summer, and from the start, he was intrigued by her intellect, her wit, her strength. But Michelle, she was skeptical. "I thought he was cute," she later admitted, "but I was also his advisor, and he was just another smart guy from Harvard." She didn't want to be a cliché, another young professional woman dating the hotshot intern. She had her reputation to consider. And yet, there was something about him, a quiet confidence, a sense of purpose, a steadiness that wasn't loud, but deeply magnetic. Eventually, after persistent charm and respectful patience, Barack convinced her to go on a date. Their first outing was classic and simple: ice cream at Baskin-Robbins, followed by a visit to the Art Institute of Chicago. They talked for hours, laughed, dreamed, and Michelle, despite herself, felt something she hadn't expected: ease. It was as if her guard finally let down. "He was different," she would later say. "He was authentic." Their connection deepened quickly, but this was not a whirlwind romance. It was steady, thoughtful, and rooted in friendship. They challenged each other, they pushed each other, and they held each other accountable to higher ideals. After several years of dating, Barack proposed in classic Obama style, with intellect and drama. During dinner at a fancy Chicago restaurant, the two were having a lively debate about whether they should get married. Michelle, growing increasingly exasperated by Barack's teasing logic and endless back and forth, rolled her eyes, until the waiter suddenly appeared with a ring on the dessert tray. Barack dropped to one knee. The courtroom debate was over. She said yes. They were married on October 3rd, 1992, in a warm and joyous ceremony. Michelle wore an off-shoulder ivory gown. Barack was dashing and emotional. The two vowed to love, grow, and uplift each other through all of life's unknowns. Little did they know what was coming. The early years of marriage were not easy. They juggled demanding careers: Barack as a law professor and community organizer, Michelle in law, public service, and eventually hospital administration. They had two daughters, Malia and Sasha, and like many young parents, they struggled to balance ambition with family life. Michelle has been candid about the hard seasons. "There were times I couldn't stand Barack," she once confessed in an interview. "It's hard. And if I had given up, if I had walked away from it, those tough times, I would have missed all the beauty that was there as well." Through therapy, honest conversations, and a shared vision for their family, they learned to navigate those rough waters. They weren't afraid of the work, they did it together. Then came the leap into public life. In 2004, Barack delivered the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention, launching him into national fame almost overnight. 4 years later, he announced his candidacy for President of the United States. Michelle was not instantly on board. She was protective of their children, skeptical of politics, and wary of what the spotlight might do to their marriage. But ultimately, she believed in him, and more than that, she believed in what they could accomplish together. When Barack won the presidency in 2008, the Obamas became the first Black family to ever reside in the White House. But Michelle didn't just stand by her man, she redefined the role of First Lady as an advocate for children's health, education, and military families. With grace, style, and fierce intelligence, she commanded her own voice. And Barack loved her for it. You could see it in the way they looked at each other during speeches, the private smiles shared across rooms, the small gestures, a touch on the back, a whispered joke that spoke volumes. This wasn't political performance. This was real love. In private, Michelle was Barack's anchor, his filter, his reset button. She reminded him who he was when the world tried to pull him in too many directions. Barack, in turn, encouraged Michelle to dream bigger, to speak louder, to lead boldly. Their love was never about perfection, it was about partnership. After 2 terms in the White House, they emerged not exhausted, but energized. They built the Obama Foundation, wrote best-selling memoirs, Becoming and A Promised Land, and continue to inspire a new generation of leaders and lovers. Their daughters, now young women, have blossomed into poised, thoughtful individuals, living examples of their parents' love and intentional parenting. In one of her most famous quotes, Michelle said, "We were 2 halves of a partnership who made each other better, and together we could climb mountains." She wasn't exaggerating. Their story reminds us that real love isn't about fairy tales. It's about choosing someone again and again, through chaos, through calm, through change. It's about standing in the storm, hands clasped, hearts steady. Today, after more than 3 decades together, Barack and Michelle Obama still laugh like they did on that first date, still finish each other's thoughts, still root for one another, whether it's in front of millions or behind closed doors. Because theirs isn't just a love story, it's a legacy. A quiet, powerful revolution that showed the world what love, when grounded in respect, service, and purpose, can truly become. Emily Mortimer and Alessandro Nivola. They say the most lasting love stories aren't forged in the fire of fame or lit by paparazzi flashbulbs. Some stories are quieter, written in gentle glances, shared jokes, and unwavering loyalty behind the scenes. And if there's one Hollywood couple who has mastered the art of loving in the shadows, it's Emily Mortimer and Alessandro Nivola. Their story begins in 2000 on the set of Kenneth Branagh's stylized adaptation of Love's Labour's Lost. It was a Shakespearean comedy turned 1930s musical, a bold and eccentric film that didn't make much noise at the box office. But for 2 of its stars, it would be the beginning of something far more important than any review or rating. Emily Mortimer, the daughter of famed English barrister and author John Mortimer, was carving her own space in the acting world. Brilliant, eloquent, and quietly dazzling, she had that rare combination of vulnerability and wit that made her unforgettable on screen. Alessandro Nivola, meanwhile, was a soulful American actor of Italian descent, best known at the time for roles in Face Off and Mansfield Park. He had depth behind his eyes, a kind of grounded intensity that set him apart. From the very beginning, there was a spark, not just for the cameras, not just as co-stars. It was something intangible, organic. True, Emily would later confess that she fell for him the moment he sang a Cole Porter tune for the film. He sang, "Let's Face the Music and Dance," and I was just done, she said in an interview. I fell in love with him during that scene. It wasn't a grand gesture that swept her off her feet. It was his presence, his voice, his quiet sincerity. The sort of thing you don't plan for, but recognize when it finds you. Alessandro felt it too. Emily wasn't just talented. She was disarming, curious, self-deprecating in the most charming way. She challenged him, made him laugh, and made him think. From the start, it wasn't just attraction, it was understanding. They just fit. After the film wrapped, they started dating seriously. There was no drama, no tabloid-worthy turmoil. Just two people who had found something that felt rare, and neither wanted to let it slip away. Within 3 years, in 2003, they married in a quiet ceremony in Dorset, England, near Emily's childhood home. No over-the-top guest list, no media circus. Just a heartfelt celebration among close friends and family. Soon after, they built a home together, both literally and metaphorically. They welcomed 2 children, Sam, born in 2003, and May, born in 2010. Parenthood, like everything else in their journey, was a shared adventure. While navigating the often unpredictable world of film and television, they prioritized each other and their children above all. Over the years, the two have collaborated professionally as well. Alessandro supported Emily as she stepped into the role of screenwriter and director, co-creating the semi-autobiographical HBO comedy Doll and M in 2013. Alessandro not only supported her emotionally, he produced the show, helped guide it to success, and championed her vision behind the camera. "I'm not the kind of person who can fake confidence," Emily once admitted. "And when I was doubting myself, he never did. He just believed in me, always." That belief runs both ways. Alessandro, too, credits Emily with grounding him, challenging him, and helping him stay true to himself in an industry that often thrives on ego. In interviews, he rarely speaks about their marriage in detail. When asked why, he said, "The real stuff doesn't need a platform." But make no mistake, the love is there. Not performative, not performanced, real. Of course, their life hasn't been without its challenges. Emily has openly discussed her battles with anxiety and self-doubt, especially in an industry as ruthless as Hollywood. She once said that she felt like a fraud on sets, even after achieving international acclaim. But through every moment of insecurity, Alessandro was there, not trying to fix her, but standing beside her. "You can love someone and still let them be fragile," she said, and that's what he's always done. They've also faced the practical difficulties of raising children while juggling demanding careers on 2 continents. Both actors have moved between London, Los Angeles, and New York, working on high-profile films and stage productions. Yet, through it all, they've stayed connected, always checking in, always making time, always putting their relationship at the center of their chaotic schedules. In many ways, their marriage is a creative collaboration as much as a romantic one. They admire each other not just as partners, but as artists. Alessandro has been in The Many Saints of Newark, American Hustle, and Disobedience, while Emily has delivered acclaimed performances in The Newsroom, Mary Poppins Returns, and more recently in her directorial work. Despite their successes, you'll rarely see them flaunting their relationship on red carpets. They walk hand in hand, yes, but with a sense of quiet pride rather than performance. They let the world speculate while they hold on to what's real. In 2020, they celebrated 20 years together. 2 decades of commitment, creativity, and quiet resilience. When asked in an interview how they've lasted so long in an industry that's notoriously hard on marriages, Emily said, "It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to listen, to forgive, to keep going." And Alessandro, he still looks at her like he did on that film set in 2000, like he can't quite believe his luck. In an age of Instagram declarations and curated couple goals, Emily Mortimer and Alessandro Nivola offer something much rarer. A love that's private, imperfect, and enduring. Their love story doesn't need a spotlight because it was never about being seen. It was about seeing each other, clearly, honestly, and fully. And over 20 years later, they're still choosing each other. Quietly, faithfully, beautifully. Matt Damon and Luciana Barroso. In the shimmering world of Hollywood, where fairy tale romances often unravel faster than a movie plot, genuine love can be hard to find. But sometimes, the most beautiful love stories are the ones that never needed a script. Matt Damon and Luciana Barroso didn't meet at a glamorous awards show or on a high-profile film set. Their love story didn't begin with flashing cameras or PR headlines. It began on a quiet, ordinary night in Miami in 2003, and it changed both their lives forever. Matt was in town filming the Farrelly Brothers comedy Stuck on You. At the time, he was already a household name. An Oscar-winning screenwriter, a rising star in Hollywood's elite, and a face recognized around the globe. But behind the fame, Matt had grown weary of the Hollywood dating scene. Despite his career success, something in his personal life felt incomplete. "I was working nonstop and moving constantly," he later shared. "I was tired of being alone in hotel rooms." Luciana Barroso, on the other hand, lived a world away from red carpets. Born in Salta, Argentina, she'd come to the U.S. as a young woman and was working as a bartender in a local Miami hotspot. She was also a single mom, raising her young daughter, Alexia, with quiet strength and determination. Her life was full, but demanding. She wasn't looking for love, and certainly not for a movie star. Fate, however, had other plans. One night after filming, Matt's crew persuaded him to go out for a drink. He reluctantly agreed, and that's how he walked into the bar where Luciana worked. That night, amid the music, the lights, and the Miami heat, Matt saw her, and everything changed. Luciana, he would later say, had something that stopped him in his tracks. Not just beauty, though she had that in abundance, but a grounded presence, a realness that was magnetic. She wasn't impressed by fame. She wasn't trying to be someone else. She was just herself. And that, to Matt Damon, was everything. "I literally saw her across a crowded room," he said in a 2011 interview, "and 8 years and 4 kids later, that's my life." For Luciana, the moment wasn't quite so cinematic. "He didn't act like a movie star," she shared later. "He was just very sweet and down to earth." What truly impressed her was how easily Matt connected not only with her, but also with her daughter. That kindness, the way he treated Alexia as his own, mattered more than any fame ever could. Their relationship blossomed quietly. There were no tabloid flings or public declarations, just two people building something real, away from the cameras. Matt wasn't just falling for Luciana, he was becoming a family man. He quickly embraced the role of stepfather to Alexia and poured himself wholeheartedly into their life together. In December 2005, the couple got married in a private civil ceremony at the Manhattan Marriage Bureau. It wasn't a celebrity spectacle. No designer gowns, no televised vows. Just two people making a promise, surrounded by a few close friends and family. It was simple, intimate, perfect. And over the years, their family grew. They welcomed 3 daughters together, Isabella in 2006, Gia in 2008, and Stella in 2010. Despite his fame, Matt remained fiercely protective of his children and their privacy. He embraced fatherhood with the same devotion he brought to his acting. "The only thing I ever wanted to be when I was growing up was a dad," he once said. He even added a unique clause in many of his movie contracts, what he called the 2-week rule, which ensured he would never be away from his family for more than 14 days while filming. "I never wanted to be one of those people who spent months away from home," he explained. "I love my work, but my home is where my heart is." Luciana, meanwhile, remained steadfastly out of the spotlight. Though she sometimes accompanied Matt to premieres and awards shows, she preferred to keep their life private. Friends and colleagues describe her as strong, grounded, and fiercely protective of her family. She doesn't chase attention, she creates sanctuary. Still, like any marriage, theirs hasn't been without challenges. Matt has spoken candidly about the pressures of fame, the grueling hours on set, and the demands of raising 4 daughters. But through it all, he says, Luciana has been his rock. "She's just everything," he once said. "The life we've built is all because she believed in it." In 2013, on their 8th wedding anniversary, the couple renewed their vows in an intimate ceremony in St. Lucia, surrounded by family and friends. It was another deeply personal moment, away from the cameras, a reaffirmation of the quiet love they continue to build. Today, after more than 2 decades together, their marriage remains one of Hollywood's most enduring and respected. And what makes it so inspiring isn't the glamour, it's the normalcy, the way they laugh together on red carpets, the way Matt always takes a moment to praise Luciana in interviews, the way they've shielded their daughters from the glare of celebrity and focused on giving them a real, grounded life. When asked about the key to their long-lasting relationship, Matt keeps it simple. "I married my best friend. There's no secret. We just really like being around each other." Luciana, true to form, doesn't offer sound bites or Instagram-worthy quotes. She doesn't need to, because their story isn't one of show, it's one of substance. In a world that often mistakes attention for affection and drama for depth, Matt Damon and Luciana Barroso show us what lasting love really looks like. It's not about the limelight, it's not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up, again and again, about choosing each other through the chaos, about raising children with love and intention, about building a life, not just for the cameras, but for the heart. And in that quiet, extraordinary way, their love story is one of Hollywood's greatest. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. In the golden age of Hollywood, a place notorious for glittering romances that often faded as quickly as they began, one love story stood out. Not for its spectacle, but for its sincerity. The love between Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward didn't flash across tabloid headlines with scandal or extravagance. It glowed, quietly, constantly, for 50 years, through the noise of fame, the challenges of family, and the pressures of two extraordinary careers. Their story begins in the early 1950s, behind the curtains of a Broadway theater. Paul Newman, a strikingly handsome and ambitious young actor from Ohio, was working as an understudy. Joanne Woodward, a poised and whip-smart Southern actress, was already turning heads, not just for her talent, but for her fierce independence and intellect. Their first meeting in 1953 wasn't thunderclap romance. Paul was married at the time with 3 children, and Joanne wasn't interested in complicating her life. But he was captivated. He would later say that just being in a room with Joanne made him nervous. She was witty, confident, and never fell for charm alone. He, meanwhile, looked like a man out of a magazine ad, blue-eyed, courteous, and almost too good-looking to be taken seriously. Their connection simmered under the surface for years. Fate intervened in 1957 when they were cast opposite each other in The Long Hot Summer. By that point, Paul's marriage had ended, and the timing, finally, was right. Working together on the film ignited a spark that could no longer be ignored. The chemistry on screen was electric, but it was the connection off-screen that changed everything. Joanne and Paul fell in love, not in a blaze of impulsive passion, but in the slow, steady unfolding of deep companionship. They were thinkers, artists, lovers of books and bourbon and meaningful conversation. Paul admired Joanne's brain as much as her beauty. Joanne admired Paul's decency and warmth. They married in Las Vegas on January 29, 1958, just days after Paul finalized his divorce. The ceremony was low-key, held in a hotel suite, with just a few close friends. No paparazzi, no press, just 2 actors in love, hoping to carve out a life more real than the roles they played. Hollywood was watching. Paul's career was about to skyrocket with roles in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, The Hustler, and Cool Hand Luke. Joanne, who had just won an Oscar for The 3 Faces of Eve, could have chased the same level of fame. But she chose something else. She chose balance. They moved far from the Hollywood lights, settling in a modest home in Westport, Connecticut. There, they raised 3 daughters together, Eleanor, Melissa, and Claire, while also helping to raise Paul's children from his first marriage. Joanne, for many years, prioritized motherhood, family, and their life together, while Paul traveled for film projects. But she wasn't sidelined. The couple collaborated on several films over the decades, including Rachel, which Paul directed and Joanne starred in, earning her an Oscar nomination. They understood each other as artists and as partners. They didn't compete. They elevated one another. Their conversations were spirited, their disagreements thoughtful. And though Joanne once admitted that putting her career second was difficult, she never regretted the life they built. Yet their journey wasn't flawless. They faced their share of pain. Grief over the death of Paul's son, Scott, in 1978 from a drug overdose, and the emotional scars that followed. Paul battled guilt, Joanne battled heartbreak, and their family wrestled with the weight of loss. But even then, they didn't drift apart. They leaned into each other. Paul found purpose in giving back. In 1982, he co-founded Newman's Own, a food company that donated 100% of its profits to charity. Joanne supported the vision wholeheartedly, helping shape the philanthropic empire that has since raised over $500 million for children's hospitals, education, and social justice causes. Behind the scenes, their love deepened in the little things: weekend drives, political debates over dinner, long afternoons in the garden, and handwritten notes. Paul often left Joanne romantic messages, even after decades of marriage. He once said, "People stay married because they want to, not because the doors are locked." When asked why he never strayed, Paul gave one of the most quoted responses in Hollywood love lore: "Why go out for a hamburger when you have steak at home?" It was cheeky, yes, but also profoundly loyal. He never stopped admiring Joanne, and he made sure the world knew it. Joanne, in return, was his fiercest advocate. She protected their privacy, kept their family grounded, and never allowed fame to consume them. In an industry where ego often drives couples apart, theirs was a union of humility and trust. Their love story continued to evolve as they aged. They embraced the quiet years, grandparenthood, shared activism, and slower days at home. Paul, ever the romantic, remained captivated. "She's the one," he told friends. "She always has been." When Paul Newman passed away in 2008, after a private battle with cancer, they had been married for 50 years, half a century of love. Not perfect, but profoundly real. Joanne was by his side until the very end, their fingers laced in silent gratitude for a life fully lived, together. She later said, "We really liked each other. We could talk, we could laugh, we could cry. We were in it for life." And that's what their marriage was: a lifetime commitment, built not on drama or spectacle, but on friendship, fierce devotion, and shared values. In Hollywood, where marriages often flicker like flashbulbs, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward were different. They were not just a couple, they were a partnership. They built a love that was equal parts flame and foundation. They raised a family, changed lives, made art, and stood the test of time, not in the limelight, but in life's most intimate moments. Their legacy isn't just in movies or foundations. It's in the reminder that lasting love is possible. If it's built on respect, if it's built on laughter, if it's chosen again and again. Legend and Chrissy Teigen. Some love stories feel like they were written in the stars, destined to happen at just the right moment, when two souls meet and quietly realize they've found home in each other. The story of John Legend and Chrissy Teigen is exactly that. A beautiful blend of romance, humor, vulnerability, heartbreak, and resilience. A modern love story that has captivated millions, not just for its fairy tale glamour, but for its honesty and humanity. Their paths first crossed in 2006 on the set of John Legend's music video for his song Stereo. John was already on his way to becoming one of the most recognizable voices in R&B, with his rich, soulful tone and deeply romantic lyrics. Chrissy, then a rising model, was cast as his love interest in the video. The chemistry between them was instant, electric, but effortless. Chrissy has often joked that she walked into his dressing room that day, saw John ironing his underwear, and that was it. She was hooked. Unlike many Hollywood romances that begin with whirlwind declarations, theirs started quietly, with no immediate promises or grand gestures. After filming Wrapped, they kept in touch, texting late into the night, sharing their dreams, quirks, and vulnerabilities. There was a playful ease between them from the start. They laughed easily together, teased one another, and built a friendship that slowly deepened into something neither could ignore. But even the sweetest beginnings have their bumps. About a year into their relationship, John briefly tried to end things. He was overwhelmed with his grueling touring schedule and felt uncertain if he could balance a relationship with his rapidly growing career. But Chrissy wasn't ready to let go so easily. In her signature mix of humor and honesty, she told him he was being silly. And by the very next day, John realized he couldn't walk away from what they had. That moment became one of the defining early tests of their love, a small breakup that never truly was one, and proof that some bonds are worth fighting for. As John's career soared, with Grammy wins and sold-out tours, Chrissy remained his constant, supportive, grounded, and fiercely protective of their relationship. Their contrasting personalities complemented each other perfectly. John's calm, introspective nature balanced Chrissy's vibrant, unfiltered humor. Together, they navigated the glitz of red carpets and award shows, but always kept their relationship rooted in simple joys: home-cooked meals, silly inside jokes, and spontaneous getaways. In 2011, after 5 years together, John proposed during a vacation in the Maldives. True to his nature, he made sure the moment was private, intimate, and personal. And true to hers, Chrissy would later reveal she almost ruined the surprise by snooping through his luggage beforehand. But when John finally presented the ring, there was no hesitation. She said yes, with tears and laughter. Their wedding took place on September 14, 2013 in Lake Como, Italy, a destination that held special meaning for the couple, as one of their earliest vacations had been there. The ceremony was both glamorous and deeply personal, attended by close family, friends, and a few famous faces. John serenaded Chrissy with his hit song All of Me, which he had written for her, an anthem that would soon become one of the most iconic modern love songs. Their early years of marriage were filled with joy and growth, but also with private struggles that they bravely chose to share with the world. Chrissy was open about their battles with infertility, a painful, emotional journey that many couples face, but few discuss publicly. Through IVF, they welcomed their first daughter, Luna Simone, in 2016, bringing immeasurable joy into their lives. 2 years later, their son Miles Theodore was born, completing their small, happy family for a time. But in 2020, tragedy struck in the most heartbreaking way. While expecting their third child, Jack, Chrissy suffered a devastating pregnancy loss at 20 weeks. The couple chose to grieve publicly, sharing raw and painful images from the hospital to shed light on the silent grief so many experience. Their openness sparked worldwide support and helped remove some of the stigma surrounding pregnancy loss. Though the heartbreak was profound, it also showcased the depth of their love, not just for Jack, but for each other, as they clung to one another during their darkest days. Even amid loss, they remained hopeful. In 2023, their family was blessed with the arrival of 2 more children, daughter Esty Maxine, born naturally, and son Ren Alexander, born via surrogacy just months later. These joyful additions became symbols of healing and hope, testaments to their resilience and unwavering commitment to each other and their growing family. Throughout it all, their public personas remained refreshingly authentic. Chrissy's unfiltered social media presence, full of hilarious commentary, candid confessions, and playful jabs at John, offered a glimpse into a marriage built on laughter and honesty. Meanwhile, John continued to be her biggest supporter, publicly praising her strength, humor, and kindness. When asked about the secret to their lasting love, John has said, "We just really enjoy being around each other. We support each other's dreams. We trust each other, we respect each other, and we laugh a lot." Chrissy, always quick with a joke, often simply says, "I married my best friend." Today, John Legend and Chrissy Teigen are more than just a famous couple. They've become a beacon of modern love, imperfect, resilient, and refreshingly real. They've weathered the storms together, celebrated the highs, mourned the losses, and emerged stronger each time. Their love story proves that while sparks and fairy tale weddings make for great beginnings, it's the quiet, everyday choosing of one another that makes a love story last. Through laughter, heartbreak, growing pains, and joyful new chapters, John and Chrissy continue to write theirs. One honest, beautiful page at a time. In a city that often trades depth for dazzle, where love stories burn bright and fade fast, the romance of Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell stands out, not because it's perfect, but because it's beautifully real. Their story didn't begin with fireworks. In fact, the first time they met, Kristen wasn't impressed. It was 2007 at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. Kristen, already a rising actress known for Veronica Mars, recalled Dax being loud, brash, and, well, a bit much. There was no spark, she once admitted. Dax at the time was a recovering addict and a bit of a wild card, best known for his role on Punk'd, but fate had its own plans. A few weeks later, they ran into each other again at a Los Angeles Kings hockey game. Kristen was cheerful and sarcastic. Dax was funny and unpredictable. This time, something shifted. "I was instantly attracted to her," Dax later said. That night, they started talking, and then texting, and then they couldn't stop. It wasn't a fairy tale at first glance, but it became one. Their early relationship was filled with laughter and connection. Kristen's optimism balanced Dax's intensity. But after a few months, Dax did something dramatic. He broke up with her. He wasn't ready. His past, full of addiction and casual flings, made him wary of commitment. But Kristen didn't fight. She respected his space. And oddly enough, it was her calmness that rattled him most. Something clicked, Dax later revealed. She didn't try to manipulate me. She just let me go. And that made me realize what I was losing. He called her the next day and asked to come back. As their relationship deepened, they moved in together. They laughed constantly, bickered occasionally, and started to build a quiet life away from the Hollywood noise. In 2009, they got engaged, but they refused to marry until same-sex marriage was legal in California. "We're not going to have a party until everyone can," Kristen declared. It wasn't just romantic, it was principled. Finally, in 2013, when the Defense of Marriage Act was struck down, Kristen tweeted, "Dax Shepard 1, will you marry me?" His reply, "But yes." That October, they got married at the Beverly Hills courthouse in a small, sweet ceremony that cost just $142. Kristen wore black pants. Dax cried. There was no press, no flash, just love. Their first daughter, Lincoln, was born in 2013. Their second, Delta, followed in 2014. Parenthood brought new joy and new chaos. They were honest about the struggles. Kristen opened up about postpartum depression. Dax admitted that the responsibility terrified him at first, but they navigated it together, always with humor and humility. Kristen once joked, "Dax is a fantastic father, but he's also the type who teaches our kids how to ride the dog like a horse." Their relationship has never been polished. It's raw, sometimes messy, and full of real work. Kristen admits she used to slam doors during arguments. Dax had trouble being vulnerable, but they never swept issues under the rug. Instead, they went to therapy, early and often. "We do fierce moral inventories," Kristen said. "We're honest about our flaws." Dax's sobriety became a foundation in their marriage. He's been sober since 2004, but he relapsed in 2020 after a motorcycle accident and began secretly taking painkillers. The moment he realized he was in trouble, he confessed everything to Kristen. Her reaction wasn't anger, it was love. "He's very, very honest," she said. And he was honest even when it was hard. That moment, while heartbreaking, brought them even closer. They recommitted to therapy and healing. "Addiction is part of our love story," Kristen once shared, but it doesn't define it. Humor is their glue. Whether it's Kristen crying happy tears over a surprise sloth video or Dax dressing in ridiculous costumes to prank her, they don't take themselves too seriously. When tabloids spread wild rumors that they hosted key parties, they laughed it off, joking that they were actually just fighting about who took the better nap that day. They roast each other in interviews, tease each other online, and share awkward parenting moments without filter. But behind the comedy is care. Dax says he feels like he won the lottery with Kristen. And Kristen, she says Dax elevates vulnerability to an art form. After nearly 2 decades together, their love hasn't faded. It's evolved. They've survived fights, therapy, fame, addiction, parenting, and growing pains. They've stayed not because it was easy, but because they made a choice every day to keep learning each other. Kristen once said, "You have to choose to love the person you're with, even when you don't like them very much. And that choice is what makes love last." In a town of tabloid heartbreaks and flash-in-the-pan romances, Dax and Kristen have built something rare, a partnership rooted in truth, tenderness, and laughter. They don't call themselves relationship goals. They don't pretend they're perfect. In fact, they go out of their way to show the world that real love is messy, but they've proven something powerful. Love doesn't need to be idealized. It just needs to be honest. And maybe that's what makes their story so unforgettable. In Kristen Bell's words, "We've worked hard. We go to therapy. We talk about hard stuff. And we stay. Because we choose each other. Every time." In the glittering world of Hollywood, where fame often flickers and love stories are as fleeting as movie credits, Viola Davis and Julius Tenen offer something rare. A romance not born of red carpets and spotlight, but of faith, patience, and deep soul connection. And like all the best love stories, theirs began with a prayer. It was 2001. Viola Davis, already a respected theater actress, was climbing her way through the labyrinth of Hollywood. Her talent was undeniable, but her heart felt hollow. "I was the loneliest woman in the world," she later confessed in an interview. "And someone told me, 'You need to pray for what you want.' So she did. She prayed not for fame or fortune, but for a kind man, a black man, someone older, someone who had been through life, had raised kids, who maybe even had a family of his own, someone who would understand her. I said, 'God, I want a big black man from the South who's probably been married before, has kids, because I don't want any pressure in that department.'" 3 weeks later, she met Julius Tenon. Viola had just landed a small role on City of Angels, a short-lived medical drama on CBS. Julius, a classically trained actor from Texas with a long list of TV credits, was also part of the cast. He saw her standing alone on set and decided to walk over. "She looked sad," he later said. So he introduced himself and struck up a conversation. It wasn't flashy, it was simple, genuine, kind. Viola was instantly disarmed. "I was terrified," she later recalled. "He was really good-looking, sophisticated, and kind. I had never dated someone like that before." Julius asked for her number. She gave it to him, hesitantly, nervously. That same night, he left a voicemail saying, "I just wanted to let you know that you're a beautiful and extraordinary woman, and I would love to take you out." Viola was floored. She listened to that message over and over. "He was the first man who ever made me feel that I mattered," she said. Their love didn't blossom overnight. Viola, who had grown up in poverty and hardship, brought with her deep insecurities. Julius, 10 years older, had been married before and had children. He had lived a full life and carried wisdom that steadied her. On their first date, Viola was so nervous she couldn't eat. Julius talked gently, asked questions, made her laugh, and didn't rush a thing. Over time, he helped her heal. "He told me I was beautiful. He told me I was worthy. He told me I was enough," she said, and I started to believe it. She often tells people that Julius loved her into her worth, that his kindness gave her the courage to believe in herself, not just as an actress, but as a woman. In 2003, just 2 years after meeting, Viola and Julius got married in a sweet, private ceremony. He came into the marriage with 2 sons from a previous relationship, and Viola welcomed them as her own. She wasn't just becoming a wife, she was stepping into motherhood. The couple supported each other through the chaos of Hollywood. Viola's career skyrocketed in the years that followed. Doubt, The Help, How to Get Away with Murder, Fences. She became one of the most decorated actresses of her generation, earning an Oscar, an Emmy, and 2 Tonys. But behind every red carpet moment, Julius was there, quietly, steadily, always cheering her on. They became true partners, in love and in business. Together, they founded Juvie Productions, a company dedicated to telling inclusive, authentic stories. Viola called it her way of taking control of the narrative for herself and for others who rarely saw themselves on screen. After several years of marriage, Viola and Julius decided to grow their family. But it wasn't easy. Viola had always wanted to be a mother, and the journey was long and emotional. Finally, in 2011, they adopted a baby girl, Genesis Tenon. "Genesis was our miracle," Viola said, and Julius embraced fatherhood again with open arms, just as he had before. Viola says he was the one changing diapers at 3 a.m., the one who gave her the strength when she doubted herself as a new mom. Together, they raised Genesis with love, discipline, and an unwavering sense of truth. Viola often jokes that Julius is the stricter parent, but admits that his guidance is what holds their home together. Their love hasn't been without challenges. Viola has been open about her trauma, her mental health, and the pain of growing up poor and invisible. But Julius never flinched. He stood by her through therapy, through breakdowns, through everything. And Viola, she never takes that for granted. "He's my rock," she says. "He sees me, all of me, and still chooses me." In 2016, they renewed their vows in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family. Viola wore white again, smiling bigger than ever. "I wanted to do it all over again," she said, "because every year our love gets deeper." Viola often speaks about how rare it is for Black women to be seen, loved, and protected in the way Julius loves her. "He's a unicorn," she says. "He shows up. He sees me, not just the actress, not the awards, just Viola." They live a quiet life in Los Angeles, focused on family, their production company, and doing meaningful work. Their daughter is growing up seeing a model of partnership grounded in respect, laughter, and truth. Julius once said, "We're just two imperfect people who never gave up on each other." In a world filled with Instagram illusions and fairy tale facades, the love between Viola Davis and Julius Tenen is gloriously real. It's the love that starts with a prayer and shows up with kindness. It's the love that holds you when you're broken, lifts you when you doubt yourself, and walks with you through every high and low. It's not just a Hollywood romance, it's a human one, full of faith, full of fight, full of forever.